Hello! Thanks for coming by. Are you doing experiments to verify your research idea in your PhD? In this video, I will show you how I tested a new construction idea by building some concrete structures. It is part of the experiment or the fieldwork stage of my PhD journey where you actually do something to test out your idea. This step usually takes place after you have got your research question and you want to see if this idea actually works. Stay until the end of the video where I will share with you some tips on how to ensure you get the most out from your experiments. If you are doing a PhD or simply interested in innovative construction, I hope you find this useful. For my PhD, I came up with an untested way of constructing concrete shells. I will show you the time-lapse of 3 concrete shells which were built with flexible and reusable formwork support as the proof of concept. Experiments often take a long time to plan, prepare, and execute, but worth every minute when you come to the writing up stages of your PhD thesis. The process of construction also provides insight into the exciting and unexpected nature of testing, going into uncharted waters, which is what a PhD does sometimes. We started by positioning 2 precast concrete abutments at opposite ends of a baseboard. We then made a grid shell lattice from flexible PVC conduit pipes. The grid shell is also braced by horizontal pipes to retain the shape and dimension. A plastic fabric stiffened by 2 pipes on either side is then attached to the structure. After that, an additional pipe is screwed on top of the fabric to form an edge detail where the concrete can be neatly applied. A scratch coat of concrete is first installed. Care was taken not to move the flexible structure while the concrete was pressed on. A top finishing coat was then applied to create a smooth finish. This was then allowed to harden over a weekend. The grid shell support was then removed and the fabric peeled away to reveal a fully standing concrete shell. It was braced in the same way and is similarly supported by 2 new abutments. The same plastic grid shell was then stretched into a longer lattice. A longer grid meant that the shell would be taller and narrower. To study and understand the movements during construction, extensive plumbline recordings were made. This time, concrete was applied in one single coat. As a lot of movement was observed compared to the first one, because of it being narrower and taller, timber props were used to stabilize the flexible shell. Once the concrete is cured, all supports were removed. The experiment proved that multiple concrete shells of different dimensions can be achieved by one single grid shell for temporary support. Not only was this method interesting, the surface of the shell has the imprints of the grid shell and the fabric pattern, resembling a well-upholstered upside-down cushion. To further explore this method, yet another concrete shell of a more complicated form and shape was constructed. So here are some of my tips when doing fieldwork. First of all, plan your experiments properly. What data do you want for your experiments? What are you trying to prove? These are very important questions to ask because these experiments can be very resource intensive and therefore require careful, targeted consideration. Tip number 2. Use your literature review to inform you whether your methodology is appropriate. How are researchers working in the same area as you doing field work in order to answer their research questions? Do their methodologies work? Is your methodology better? Can you adapt and improve their methods to make yours even better? Tip number 3. Your PhD supervisor is your critical friend. Make sure they are fully on board, and it is essential that you speak to them about your work. You really want to design these experiments that answer very specific questions. In my case, will this method of constructing concrete shells work? And as evidenced by the construction, yes. Tip number 4. Be critical of how the process went. What went well? What didn't? Don't be afraid to discuss the problems that came up. In research, problems are very good things. In fact, there are research opportunities. These are all points that you can discuss in the reflection and limitation chapters in your thesis. Tip number 5. Be rigorous in your data collection analysis. Are the results conclusive? Do you need to do more experiments to know whether your idea works? Tip number 6. Be confident in your conclusions. You have done this piece of empirical work. You actually did the experiments. Even if your hypothesis didn't work, you already have contributed to knowledge in this field. And no one at all can take that away from you. Tip number 7. Present your proposed methodologies at research seminars and conferences for feedback from your learned community. You'll be surprised by the interest and generosity by experts in your field. They may also help to verify or bring new solutions to your problems. So, if you're interested, you can get more information about the experiments in my PhD thesis and journal papers, which you can download. I'll put the links in the description box below. I hope you found the video useful. Please give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please also leave them in the comments box below, as I would love to hear what you think. Are you a PhD student? Have you found your research question? In the next video, I will share with you how I came up with this research question for my PhD. Do subscribe to my channel so you will get notified when future videos all about architecture are uploaded. Have a fantastic day ahead. Bye!